Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the Apex Predator podcast. My name is Chris Snell, and we'll get to our guest in a moment. We'd like to take this time to spread the message of the Apex Predator, which consists as follows. I'll read it to you. It consists of that you're an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and ultimately an army of one. Irregardless of where you are on your journey, that is what we are striving for through the purposes of this show. And as well, here is where my guest comes in. Lee Makarwich, welcome, my good man.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Now, Lee, tell me about where do you originally hail from and how it is that you got to do what it is that you got to do.
Sure. So, originally born and raised here in Fort Worth, Texas. I still live here currently. Um, played some college baseball. Uh, Started out as a person that had a rough upbringing, if you will. Had to do a lot on my own. And all of that being said is contributed to who I am today, which is a number of things. I started a podcast called The Dad Hat recently. Uh, it
Mm-hmm.
was it was brought on by fatherhood, of course, but I just did not expect the life changing result of having a child. You know what that would make for me. So after that happened, I realized I don't know a lot about you know modernity. The stories that my parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles told me was very different from the experience that I was having day to day. So, you know what? I was like, let's talk with some people about it and let's share that experience, and that's how I started the Dad Hat.
Well, you've got me floored here because it's so surprising that you would say that you begin a podcast to learn all this stuff. Because, ironically enough, my background is I was originally a radio broadcaster for many years, and we were taught that radio is the university of life. Let's fast forward the tale up until roundabout in the early 90s, going up especially to where it would ultimately take hold in 2008, where podcasting has actually sort of replaced that sense of it being the university of life on a professional scale. But on a more personal scale, do you think it is because of the fact that you have this desire within you to be the best that you can be as a dad, to get all these people and say, listen, talk to me about paternity. I've got no clue. And do you take something from each and every one that you from the guests that you have on?
Yeah, so let me answer the latter question first. I take something from every single guest and maybe every single person I talk to. I try to go into every discussion or meeting with a person with the understanding that they probably know something that I don't, and let me find that and let me put it in my back pocket. So that's part of my strategy there. Um, what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't actually a first part. But if there were to be a follow up, I would say, do you think it is because of the fact of your upbringing that you have this longing in you to learn more because you want to be the best parent that you can be?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. So I grew up in a very competitive nature. I played baseball, I played football, I played, lots of extracurriculars, um, and all of that competition really taught me that you know you can make something of yourself with that competition. You can
Mm.
you can improve yourself with competition, and that is to me is the most important about competing in general. So, yeah, my upbringing probably had something to do with it just because I got to be in extracurricular activities.
Well, there's something that you just mentioned now. I spoke to a friend of mine not too long ago about this very same subject. If there's something that I see in society today is a sort of culture of lackluster is being okay. Do you get what I'm saying in that regard?
Yes.
But if you look at our ancestral history as men, we are actually meant to overshoot, to thrive, to compete. And there's this notion that I find that if you are overexerting yourself, it's sort of seen as selfish in the eyes of society today, but it's part of our general makeup. So what happens? Men today who are in the beta category tend to deny that, and it's causing them major frustration. Have you seen something similar in your inner circle?
Yeah, definitely. So I, we have this inclination, and Nietzsche wrote about this, 120 years ago, of the person that suffers more deserves more. And that idea to me is probably the base of what I call victim culture. This beta, or I'm not sure of all the terms in the manosphere or whatever we want to say, but this beta activity of being good is being meritable is not an accomplishment, and that is a very that's a slippery slope, as people say. I mean, if we're not merit based, then we're not growing the pie per se, and if we're not growing the pie, everything's staying exactly the same, and we're just going to fight over the current pie, which will diminish, if we're not continuing to make it bigger.
Absolutely. But then again, you have to also look at it from at its core, in that if we dare and overexert ourselves today, where are we going to leave the others behind? It's that sort of ideal that's being sprouted today. Because I'm the last of the millennials, to give you an idea. And there's jealousy because if you feel the need and you have the natural inclination to strive, you are then seen as the teacher's pet. You are then seen as the golden boy. But what I feel should be taught is, who gives a rat's what other people think? If you are born for greatness, you should strive for it and work towards it, because that greatness is not only going to help you going from your transition from a boy to a man, but it's going to help you overcome great adversities in this life. And there's a hell of a mishap in that generation today, and men are suffering because of this. It's breaking my heart.
um, the focus on the collective instead of the individual, from a government and from a policy standpoint, is a problem there for sure. I believe that when the founders made America, they thought, individual rights, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all of those things were to protect the individual. And, you know, we thrived for, or we have been thriving for hundreds of years now. And that creates inequality because, in all reality, just like you said, the teacher's pet, the golden boy, the house mouse, whatever you want to say, uh, gets all the attention, gets all the resources, supposedly, and that's the reason why they thrive. And there's this animosity from the people that don't, or are non-competitive, or beta, all those things that you've discussed prior. um they have a big problem with that. And the thing about that is, the betas are in mass. There's so many that are,
Very.
that have a voice now, and the internet and radio and podcasting and social
Oh
media,
God, don't get me started. Jesus.
all these things gave them a microphone, and now all of a sudden it's not a good thing to be great. Meritable achievement is not good anymore, which is insane to me. I think that's backwards, 100% backwards.
But let's look at what is the point of being meritus. It's a celebration of a skill. It's a celebration of a skill. And I don't know if you're familiar with the author David Goggins,
I
who
am.
wrote, oh man, I love his teachings. I'm busy with his book currently at the moment, where it talks about, there's a beautiful quote by J.M. Cardone, which is, don't let the victory of yesterday lull you into the complacency of today, for that is the greatest foundation of failure. And David accentuates the same thing. Fine, you've got the promotion at work. Fine, you won the trophy for best discus thrower. Now what are you going to do? It proves equally as much as a yardstick as what a failure should motivate you to do better. It's trying to improve your record day by day by day by day by day. Because let me share with you as well, what does that do to the people whom you influence? I'm telling you, you and I have the power as equal as what Elon Musk has, as what an athlete like Usain Bolt has, or even Elon Musk. But the blessing is, right now, at this moment in time, there are people who are the silent masses who don't speak aloud about wanting to better themselves, but they are doing it internally. And they are dependent on you and me in order to get the message out there, to give them that spurt in order to grow further. And I'm sure that must have been the experience with you as well with Dad Hat.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that it started as a way to gain understanding, gain wisdom for sure. And I didn't believe that the recording of it or the documentation of it was going to be extremely important. But the more and more I do it, which I'm 10 episodes in now, um, I believe it's very important. It's going to be something that um, if I'm prolific with this, which I plan to be, at 100, 200 episodes, it's going to be amazing. I think there's going to be so much value that we can pass down across upwards to fathers across the world that want to be a great father, understand that being a father is something you have to be intentional about. That's one of the things that we talk about on the Dad Hat quite often is being intentional, being present as a father. And I have a 2-year old currently, and he, we I taught him the chess pieces the other day. He can name all the chess pieces, and it only took about 15 minutes to for him
At two
to
years
understand.
old.
Yeah, too. I was astounded too. My wife was like, "What is happening right now?" He's just like, "Bishop." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a bishop for sure. This is a king." I'm like, "Yep, you're right. This is a pawn. All of them."
Does he know
So
all the positions where they move in?
no, he can just pick them up and he can identify, what the crown looks like, what the rook's castle looks like, and all that sort of stuff. And
Oh, I see.
it's memory. So my wife's Vietnamese and
I see.
she's got a great memory also, and his ability to focus and memorize things is astounding to me. But going back to being intentional, I was very intentional about what we were doing after I had realized he was gonna remark after I told him this is a pawn. He was gonna say, "Oh yeah, that's a pawn." After that, I was like, "Oh, okay, let's get all of them done right now." And 15 minutes later, he had them. So those sort of breakthroughs are what we can look forward to as fathers because that's achievement. That's meritable, and that's what we should hold as being very important.
Before we get into the mechanics, I feel I should ask this based on the anecdote you've just told me. What exactly does fatherhood mean to you?
Mm,
The components, the message, the principles of fatherhood.
okay. So currently at his age, I believe, and this is probably from toddler to 5 or 6 years old, from what I've read. Um, being present, so paying attention, direct attention to him, what he's doing, what he's saying, um, what he wants to do, why he wants to do it, being very present for those things. But also, even at this age, I need to become a better person myself because he's picking up on what I'm doing, not what I'm saying, not what I'm commanding, not what I'm requesting. He's picking up on what I'm doing. So I'm thinking, okay, I gotta be a great person, or else he's gonna pick up on all my bad habits, and we're starting bad off the get go. So what I've been trying to do is have my podcast, understand how to be a better person, morally, day to day habits. All of those things are becoming more important to me as my son gets older.
And what would you say has been your keystone building blocks in order for you to be a functional dad who just shows up?
Sure. So my first thing, I would say the pillar is unconditional love. No matter what, you gotta love them because you're their first uh, super personal relationship. I am my son's first relationship. My wife is my son's first relationship. So no matter what, I got to show him love, whether I don't like what he does or I do like what he does. He's going to get love and he's going to understand that I love him. The second thing is, and this is something that has built a little bit of a list, but at the top of the list is what I call discipline. But discipline right now is more of routine. We have a not super strict bedtime, but we go to bed somewhere between 8 and 8:30 p.m. every single night. We wake up 6 a.m. pretty much every single morning. And that in itself does wonders, in my opinion, because obviously he's got to sleep. The sleep is necessary, of course, but also the expectation of when it's time to go to sleep, when it's time to wake up, makes him more comfortable as a kid, I believe. I mean, I'm so blessed because my son wakes up and he says, "Good morning. How did you sleep?" Almost every morning. And it's nuts. It blows my mind still, and it happens every day. So I think unconditional love and discipline are the things that are keystone.
You know what? You're making me swell with joy. You're making me swell with joy because that's a dad. That's a dad. There's a beautiful plaque that I used to have in my old house. I've just recently moved here to a new location. Anyone can be a dad, but it takes a real man to be a father. And you're
Beautiful.
busy fulfilling that criteria to the hilt. To the hilt. Tell me about Dad Hat. Do you interview people? Do you offer advice? How did it come to be, and what is your practice in that regard?
So, like I said, I'm at 10 episodes, and for the most part, it's been interviewing people. And my interviews so far have been about children of all ages. Um, so sorry.
Not a problem. Carry on.
Uh, my first 10 episodes have been more about parents of any age child, and they've been based on interviewing what I would call experts. One of the most recent ones is how to get college funded from different grants and associations and stuff like that, and the strategy it takes to go to college debt free. That was a really good one. We did one about school shootings, about how the first 5 minutes of a school shooting is extremely important and to keep people safe. Um, but
And
these
so hot on the
interview,
heels of that shooting that happened in Nashville.
yeah, yeah,
My
it's
word.
what a terrible thing. And going back to society and culture, it kills me that we're going to make the story about gender and all of these other wild ideas instead of trying to improve the situation for the people, for the victims of the crime, and trying to improve the situation for the future of our children in America.
Mm.
And but yet somehow, some way, it was hijacked, or has been hijacked, about the shooter who deserves zero fame and needs zero fame from this, and that's exactly what we've given the shooter.
Very much so. And it breaks my heart so much because, apart from the fact that a couple of lives were lost, small little lives with their entire lives still to play out ahead of them, what about the kids who were traumatized because of that event? And now, even more than ever, I think dads are going to have to play a more prominent role to counsel their kids and to give them that assurance that they are going to be safe and that there is going to be danger, but
Yeah.
they don't have to face it alone. But this is the integral part that we as men need to put shoulders together, share ideas, and more often than not, and you can weigh in on this if you please, but also hold one another accountable, especially in a close friendship setting. Because integrally, right now at this moment in time, men are not the head of the house, and they're allowed to being walked over just to play along and make sure that they are not being, um, what's the word I'm looking for? That they're not being uppity,
Yeah.
but they're causing their kids extreme harm at the end of the day, creating soft. Uh, um, Too much comfort creates soft men,
Hmm.
and soft men can't endure hard times.
right? Yeah. The
And that is
saying,
very, very sad.
yeah, yeah. I believe that the feminine values that we are preaching to Americans today is necessary, but they
Sure.
have they have
No
been
denying.
right. They've been dominated to where the masculine values of protecting your family. You know,
Hmm.
if someone breaks in our home and tries to burglarize or rob our home, it's going to be me that tries to save the
Deflect the
day,
situation. Correct.
deflect the situation, right? Well, if nobody is there to do that, then what happens? I mean, are we going to rely on the government? Are we going to rely on the police to ensure that, you know, we don't get robbed and killed in the middle of the night? It's not that I don't believe that the police can handle it, or in some places they can, in some places they can't, but it's inevitable with this many people in one place that those types of situations are going to arise. And for us not to talk about being masculine, for us not to talk about how to be better men, and it's okay to be a man. That's the other thing. It is okay to be masculine. It's okay to be a man. There's no uh you shouldn't feel guilty about wanting your son to have a strong moral compass, a strong uh constitution in himself. There's nothing wrong with those ideas and values and principles.
Nothing. Nothing.
So,
There's nothing wrong with hunting.
yeah, nothing wrong
There's
with
nothing
hunting.
wrong with self defense.
Nothing wrong with self-defense.
But let's clarify here now what is true masculinity. Number one, it's leadership. Number two, it's a display of courage. Number three, it's mentorship. Taking your experiences, your skill sets, and passing it on to the next generation. Then, most importantly of all, it's free thinking. Does guns contribute to the overlying factor of crime? No, it doesn't. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. You are there to defend your life when so called to. But when it comes to the matter of just trying to be a gung ho cowboy, sorry, that's only in the movies, dare I say. But when it comes to matters of being masculine, where does it ultimately come the divide between positive masculinity and toxic masculinity? I'll tell you where toxic masculinity comes into play, which makes it toxic. It's the man who sits on his bottom. The moment that he comes home, he should be absolutely served hand and foot, guzzling away on alcohol while watching trash TV. They're the first ones to complain about the world, but they're not contributing to this world. That's toxic masculinity. True positive masculinity is no matter how hard a day he's had, he's still going to be there and make sure that there's a haven for his wife and child to return to, or children to return to. He's the father, the husband, who says, you know what, this weekend, let's go and have a weekend away. He is the father who says, kids, I love you. Come and do something with me, even if it's like something as small as like take a child to work day, so that you alluded to this as well, so that they can absorb your actions, so that they can form a picture in their head, because children are like sponges. And it's surprising to see, especially when you reach the age of 10 years old, how without realizing it, you unconsciously emulate those characteristics. And you have done it in such a great way. And do you mind me asking, what is it that you do for a living?
I'm in the automotive business.
Oh, you're in the automotive business. So was I. So was I. I was doing car rentals.
Nice. Yeah.
I want to
So
say,
go ahead.
what is the vision that you see for yourself going forward with Dad Hat? And what is ultimately your aim with Dad Hat? Do you want to reach more dads, and do you want to present a more versatile uh, vision, as it were, of fatherhood as a whole?
So I I don't know if I want to create a vision for fatherhood as a whole. I would say no to that personally because I believe that concerning the child, every father may or may not need to change strategies. I don't think the same strategies are the same for every single father. You know, obviously, there's going to be households and families with a child that has special needs. There's going to be households and families that have a son or daughter that is ahead of schedule as far as development goes. So all those strategies may be interchangeable. They may need to be, you may need some different utility to be the best father that you could. But that is what's great about the dad hat is the plan is to continue to interview people of all walks of life, what man, woman, uh the child of a great father, the child of a terrible father, and bring in all the nuance that I possibly can, and maybe connect with the audience in a way that is interchangeable. I don't believe that there's a right way to do every single thing. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say, and uh, being diverse on who uh, my guests are on the podcast is extremely important. I don't want to have the same message over and over again. I want to bring in the nuance of fatherhood. That way, it can reach people in different ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nuance is key to everything. Variety is the spice of life. And I'm sure it must have a really emotional effect on you having these people on telling you their stories and sharing some tips as well that you can put into your toolbox, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing that there's so many people out there right now that are willing to do that. It's if you know where to go, if you know the right questions to ask, if you have yourself um, prepared, if you have your house in order, as they say, then people
Of course.
are more than willing to have a conversation with you about personal things. I ask people about their fathers all the time, which a lot of times is a terrible story and they don't want to really say it, but they understand that there's value in expressing that story to maybe not make the same mistakes or maybe take the bits of awesomeness from the terrible situation that they told. And I hope that happens all the time, and I think it will.
I believe so too. You touched on something that I think is also really relevant. Be grateful for the bad times as much as you are grateful for the good times because there's always lessons that you can take from others, from those who failed you, and even the times when you have failed yourself. And that I realized myself, to tell you the God's honest truth.
Yeah, yeah.
And taking
Um,
ownership.
yeah. Ownership is if you're going to avoid um, your issues. Jung calls it the shadow, the other side of the ego. Carl Jung, psychologist, he
Hmm.
calls it the shadow. If you're not going to pay attention to your shadow, all the negative sides to your ego or your identity, then you're never going to improve yourself, and you're almost fated uh, to have mental problems. And you know what?
Very much. Very much. Why
That's
do you think?
exactly. Go ahead.
What do you think I've often said to people? Why the hell is there a quote like "stay in your lane"? It's sort of an engaging statement that it's okay to be lackluster. Forget that. You have to own your shadow.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree. And, we have this mental problem, the mental health issue in America that everybody's talking about right now, and everybody's wondering why this is happening. And, you know, I would say you might dub a lot of those people that are complaining or have mental health issues as beta. I don't know if that is the case, and I don't know if you would even say that. But the reason why I
No,
brought that
no, 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 not at
no,
all.
no. Well, here's the thing: the mental health crisis is if you've ever read Sebastian Junger, which is he wrote a book called The Tribe or
Correct?
Tribe, and he is a he describes very thoroughly that we all need a sense of meaning and not higher power, but a working for something that is greater than ourselves. That's why
Absolutely.
people are in the military, and you know it's very dangerous, and a lot of them are in combat. 33% of them actually see live bullets, live combat, and all of
Mm,
those things are um, detrimental to your health, obviously. But for some reason, while they're there, they have uh, a psychological gain. They are more in tune with themselves than ever before. And in the book, he states that that's because they're a part of something larger than themselves. They're a part of their platoon. They're willing to die for their fellow soldier. They're willing to um, take risks to make sure their fellow soldier doesn't die. We've removed a lot of that from our society. We've removed the meaning um, of contributing, of duty, uh, and 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 that's kind of what's contributing to the mental health crisis. And the people that don't want to have a sense of duty are, more than likely going to have problems their entire life. I mean, it's
mm,
my duty to
mm.
be a father. It's my duty to protect the household. It's my duty to make sure that we have enough money to live on. All of those things. Those, if you're gonna forego duty as a man, then you're going to have mental health issues for a long time.
I have to agree with you there. And I think a lot of times there's also a misplacement with regards to mental health. What you said is absolutely correct because now, currently at the stage with mental health, it's a worldwide epidemic at the moment, especially here in South Africa, where it's easy to yell mental health, but it's more even a lack of discipline problems that, as you quite rightly said, contribute to mental health issues. No wonder my day feels out of whack. No wonder I can't reach the people that I'm supposed to reach. And no wonder my life is getting better. It's a lack of structure and it's a lack of discipline, big time. And sure, surely to goodness, there comes a time where you have to be compassionate to someone who is suffering with mental health. But I say this often, apparently to some open ears and a lot closed ears, more oftentimes than not, you're going to have to give them a kick in the pants in order to be kind and to pull them awake because the world is cruel, and this is where the military comes in. You have to have discipline oftentimes, and this is to a select few, enforced on you in order to create the realization that you've got responsibilities as a man in this world, and it must be done to the fullest extent, to the best of your abilities, to contribute to what you said, for something greater than yourself. I mean, there's this beautiful book that I've just finished called Shadow of Death, written by Fernando Arroyo, who spoke about when he joined the paratrooper regiment shortly after 9/11, it was because he felt a need to protect his country. And there's no greater weight on your shoulders than having more than 1.2 million in the United States and their safety and their freedoms resting on your shoulders as a defender. That's a huge honor. A huge, huge honor. And I'm a South African, hear me. But if there's one country that I love more than life itself because it gave me the skills that I need in order to do something like this and what you and I are doing right now, it's the land of the free and the home of the brave.
That's right.
Lee, I just want to end off by saying thank you, first and foremost, for participating in this interview. I'm sure it must have been a new experience for you. And by comparison, well done with Dad Hat. May it be successful to the nth degree. Tell me, where can people find it if they're hearing
Sure.
about it for the very first time?
Yeah. You can go to the website thedadhat.com, thedadhat.com, and you can find us any social media site at the Dad Hat.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Lee Makarwich of the Dad Hat Podcast. And my name is Chris Nell. This has been the Apex Predator. Lee, thank you so much. And we end off with this message. As an Apex Predator, you're an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit. In so doing, you are an army of one. God bless everyone.